Welcome to another amazing Faena Rose event, and I'm excited to welcome Craig Mundie, who is the co-author of Genesis. And tell us a little bit about the book.
The goal of the book was to kind of achieve two things. One was to get people to focus more on the positive outcomes that could come from having superintelligence in machines. And the second was to base the optimism about that on the idea that there can be a strategy that humanity can embark on in order to protect against the downside risks.
Here we are and here we go. Thank you, everyone. I have the incredible privilege to introduce you to our moderator tonight. Please join me in welcoming the absolutely brilliant Sean McManus.
Thank you, Alonso. Tonight, we have a very special guest of honor. Please welcome Craig Mundie to the stage. Okay. So, first of all, I want to give a big congratulations to Craig, whose book is now on the bestseller list of the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and USA Today. So congratulations. What would be your guidance in terms of how to approach the regulatory frameworks around military defense?
Machines are going to have to be able to understand in some very specific way where we want to hold them accountable and demand ultimate accuracy. And I think that will similarly apply if you basically put this thing in a drone and send it on an autonomous mission in some kinetic warfare environment. You have to trust that it's going to basically follow the rules of engagement and try to live within whatever constructs we deem appropriate. Mm-hmm. The challenge we've got as people building the technology, and the reason I think many of the CEOs of the companies said to the governments, look, government, you need to regulate us a little bit.
Yeah.
And the reason was they could sense, and this was true back in the day at Microsoft, we knew that there were things that we worried about, but we couldn't resolve without the participation of the government. So if you want to create these architectures of trust, and you want to have uniform controls, then governments are going to have to basically figure out what they need to compel people to do in some uniform way. In the past, we've created laws and then we try to apply them uniformly. This challenge is actually a little greater because if you believe the AI in any of these scenarios, whether it's a healthcare scenario or a military or cybersecurity scenario, if you think that the outcomes can represent some class of existential risk, mm-hmm. then the conventional way that we used to make rules and then enforce them to create deterrent doesn't work. The way we've always done it is we wait for you to do a bad thing. And we say, oh, that was not good. Right. And so then we pass a law that says that's not good, you shouldn't do that anymore. So when she comes along and does it again, we say, oh, that's bad, we slap your hand. Right. And then you say, wow, we don't want to get slapped, so we won't do that anymore. Yeah. Well, that's the goal. But if it turned out the thing that the AI concocts to do is deadly, then you don't get a replay. Yeah. And so, we now have to raise the bar to where the AIs can essentially prevent bad things from happening that humans have never contemplated. So it looks like they're using AIs to do this kind of work makes it possible. And again, it draws on the polymathic nature of the machine to do what humans can't do for themselves in this regard. Yeah. But each of these represents a substantial advance from the way that we've thought about these things and the way our, for example, judicial system works. Mm-hmm. In essence, at least as it relates to the actions of an AI, if you get a system like this working, then judgment is happening at the point of execution, not after the fact. And so the whole idea of having to go to trial and decide afterward whether you think you did a good thing or a bad thing, that won't exist for AI things mm-hmm. in the future. Yeah. And so, that is a pretty profound change for what we think of as our justice system and the way it works. And so it doesn't matter where you look when you start to look at it through the lens of fundamental change from superintelligent systems, it's going to require a lot of adaptation. People ask me a lot whether I worry a lot about the AI, treating us as pets or, deciding we're not necessary at all. frankly, I worry a lot more in the short term about the AIs, even as we have them now, falling into the hands of criminals and bad actors, because it super empowers those people at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot less emphasis today than is really required to try to withhold access to this technology from elements of society on a domestic and global basis that we worry about, and that it might be more likely that you accelerate some guy who's got a red button to push already in doing a bad thing than the AI waking up one day and saying, oh, I should push the button for you. One of the very last things Henry did before he died was he made his last trip at age just after his 100th birthday to China to meet with President Xi, at Xi's request. Henry said, I'll come, but we have to spend a lot of time talking about artificial intelligence, because that's what I think the real issue is. Henry's biggest concern for China and the United States was the emergence of superintelligent machines. So Kissinger and Xi agreed to start a more persistent Track 2 activity, and Henry was going to chair it. I was going to be the co-chair in the U.S. Notably, this dialogue is one that has more people who are the business people developing the technology in both countries, and not just government people, because we recognize that the real understanding of this is not in the governments, it's in the companies. And that's an unusual construction too. But when Henry died, he wanted to be sure that not only the book got published, but that Track 2 continued. And so in January, I agreed to take that on. And so today, Larry Summers and I are co-chairing the U.S. side, and we have an ongoing discussion with the Chinese. You know, I think Henry, as a diplomat, taught me that, you know, even if you have differences with people, it's good to talk to them. Yeah. And sometimes I think our diplomacy suffers because we decide to stop talking, and that increases risk. Yeah. And so in this case, I don't know where to lead, but at least there's interest in having a dialogue, and we will work as hard as we can to sustain that. And hopefully, as it becomes clearer where the risks are, and to some extent what the benefits might be if the two, perhaps, AI superpowers decide to come together and show the world a direction for how to create safety with respect to the emergence of superintelligent machines, but it takes clever people on both sides to have a conversation about it, and that's what we hope to do. You know, one of the things Henry believed, and I think he shared both with President Xi and certainly we've shared with others, is even if each country was the only country, managing your country through the transition of the emergence of general intelligence will probably become the defining moment, you know, in the next generation of that country and its governance. Maybe just today's action, you know, an announcement at the White House is just a reflection of, even in this country, people starting to come to grips with the importance and the power of the change that's going to be wrought by this emergence. You know, certainly Henry's message, you know, to Xi and others, and to some extent the things that we focus on in the Track 2 dialogue that Henry set up are around these questions of governance. Not all of the random issues that you could, you know, decide to chat about, but the ones that essentially say, you know, both for your own account and for the world, you know, what should we focus on? And, you know, that's going to sort of remain my singular focus in trying to influence the outcome and the direction of these discussions. And, you know, we'll just have to see how it goes. Certainly today, if you were handicapping all the countries in the world as to, you know, where's it most likely that superintelligence would emerge at scale first, it's going to be the U.S. and China. And despite aspiration, you know, in the UK and France and even, you know, the UAE, they're just starting in a real deficit position in many ways. But the China team is fully organized and well-resourced, and there's no lack of understanding about the importance of this among the leadership there. The question is, does the U.S. really step up to the bar? And do we find, sort of as we did with the Soviets years ago, that at the end of the day, it's in our mutual interest to find some common basis of trust, both between our two countries and ultimately for the world. And we'll wait and see.
Let's give a warm round of applause to Craig Mundie.